Andrew Carter sat alone at a corner table in the restaurant called Harmony. The soft sounds of a piano filled the air as waiters moved between tables. Andrew was not dressed like a billionaire today. He wore plain jeans and a simple blue shirt. No one in the restaurant knew that the quiet man sitting alone had more money than most people could imagine. Andrew liked it this way. For once, he could watch the world without the world watching him back. His eyes moved across the restaurant, taking in the details. This area of town was old and struggling. Many buildings needed repairs. Andrew's company planned to buy this whole block soon and replace it with expensive new apartments. The restaurant was nice inside despite being in a poor area. Its walls were deep red, and small lights on each table made the room feel warm. In one corner, a black grand piano sat on a small stage. A man in a tuxedo played soft music that most guests barely noticed as they ate and talked. Andrew noticed everything, though. He noticed the couple arguing quietly by the window. He noticed the group of friends laughing too loudly after too many drinks. And he especially noticed the waitress with the tired eyes and the kind smile. Her name tag said, Lisa. She moved between tables with practiced steps, balancing plates along her arm and remembering every customer's request without writing anything down. Unlike the other servers who kept professional distance, Lisa connected with people. She asked about a regular customer's daughter who was in college. She helped an old man cut his steak when his hand shook too much to do it himself. Andrew watched her for nearly an hour. Something about her seemed different. While the other servers looked at the clock waiting for their shifts to end, Lisa worked with purpose. She moved quickly, but never rushed anyone. When she smiled, it reached her eyes even though they were lined with exhaustion. During a quieter moment when fewer guests needed help, Lisa slipped away to a small table near the kitchen. A young boy sat there with papers spread before him. Homework, Andrew guessed. The boy was maybe 7 years old, with the same dark hair and determined expression as Lisa. Her son, without question. Lisa leaned down to check his work. The boy pointed to a math problem, and she explained something quietly. Then she kissed the top of his head and returned to her tables. The boy went back to his papers, his pencil moving carefully across the page. Andrew sipped his water, wondering about their story. A single mother working in a restaurant while her child did homework nearby wasn't unusual. But there was something special in how they interacted. The boy didn't complain or demand attention. He seemed to understand that his mother was working hard for both of them. The piano player stood up and stretched, then walked toward the restrooms. The music stopped, and the restaurant felt suddenly empty without it. Andrew noticed the boy, looking up from his homework. His eyes fixed on the empty piano. His fingers tapped lightly on his math worksheet, matching a rhythm only he could hear. Lisa returned to check on her son. She saw where he was looking and followed his gaze to the piano. For a moment she hesitated. Then she leaned down and whispered something in his ear. The boy's face lit up, but he quickly shook his head, suddenly shy. Lisa glanced around the restaurant. The manager was in the back. Most guests were focused on their meals. She made a quick decision and took her son's hand. Just for a minute, Andrew heard her say as they approached the piano. The boy climbed onto the bench, but it was too low for him to reach the keys comfortably. Without hesitation, Lisa lifted him and placed a cushion beneath him. Her movements were gentle but efficient, as if she had done this before. Andrew expected the boy to press random keys or play a simple tune like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. What happened next made him put down his fork mid-bite. The boy's small hands hovered over the keys for just a moment. Then, with confidence that seemed impossible for his age, he began to play. Not simple notes, but complex flowing music that immediately silenced the tables nearest to the piano. Andrew recognized the piece, Debussy's Clair de Lune. The boy played with feeling that professional pianists worked years to develop. His small fingers stretched to reach difficult chords, and when they couldn't quite make it, he adapted the music without losing its heart. One by one, conversations around the restaurant stopped. Phones came out to record the unexpected performance. The music washed over the room like a spell, bringing everyone together in shared surprise and wonder. Lisa stood beside the piano, pride and worry fighting on her face. She knew her son had talent, that much was clear, but she also knew she shouldn't have let him play without permission. Her eyes kept darting to the door that led to the kitchen, where the manager might appear at any moment. She was right to worry. The restaurant manager, a tall man with a permanent frown, emerged from the kitchen. He stopped in shock when he saw who was playing the piano. His expression darkened as he marched toward Lisa and her son. "What do you think you're doing?" He hissed, trying to keep his voice down. "This is not a playground. That piano costs more than you make in a year." Lisa moved between the manager and her son. "I'm sorry, Mr. Benson. Ethan just wanted to play for a minute. We'll stop right away." The boy, Ethan, heard the exchange and stopped playing mid-phrase. The sudden silence felt wrong, like a beautiful painting being torn in half. Ethan's face fell as he realized he was in trouble. He slid off the bench, looking at the floor. "I didn't hurt it," he said quietly. "I was careful with the pedals like the video showed." Andrew stood up before he realized what he was doing. Something about the scene pulled him forward. He had sat by and observed his whole life, building wealth by seeing opportunities others missed. But now he felt moved to act for reasons that had nothing to do with money. "Excuse me," Andrew said, approaching the trio by the piano. "I'd like to request that the young man continue his performance." The manager's face changed instantly when he recognized Andrew. "Mr. Carter, I had no idea you were dining with us tonight. Of course, whatever you'd like." Lisa looked confused. She glanced between Andrew and the manager, not understanding the sudden change. Ethan stayed close to his mother, his chance to play apparently over despite what this stranger had said. Andrew knelt down to meet Ethan at eye level. "That was beautiful playing. Would you play the rest of the piece? I'd really like to hear it." Ethan looked up at his mother for permission. Lisa hesitated, then nodded. As Ethan returned to the piano bench, Andrew knew his life was about to change direction, though he couldn't yet imagine how completely. The restaurant fell silent as Ethan settled back onto the piano bench. Lisa stood beside him, one hand resting gently on his shoulder. She looked nervous, but proud, as her son placed his small hands back on the keys. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, finding his place in the music again. Then he began to play, picking up Claire de Lune exactly where he had left off. The gentle notes floated through the restaurant like a dream. Andrew returned to his table but remained standing, watching the boy play. The other diners were equally captivated. Phones recorded the performance, and whispers spread from table to table as people began to recognize Andrew Carter, the famous tech billionaire known for changing entire industries with his ideas. "How does he know how to play like that?" a woman at the next table whispered to her companion. "I've been taking lessons for 3 years and can't play half that well," her friend replied. Mr. Benson, the manager, hovered nearby with an uncomfortable smile. He clearly wanted to stop the impromptu performance but didn't dare contradict Andrew Carter. Instead, he pretended this had been planned all along, nodding approvingly at customers who caught his eye. Ethan seemed to forget where he was as he played. His small body swayed with the music and his face showed complete focus. For a 7-year-old boy, this level of concentration was rare. Even more remarkable was his understanding of the music's emotion. He played soft parts with gentle fingers and brought power to the crescendos despite his small size. When the piece ended, Ethan's final notes hung in the air for a perfect moment before the restaurant burst into applause. People stood from their tables, clapping and smiling. Ethan looked up in surprise, as if just remembering he had an audience. A shy smile spread across his face as he gave a small bow. Lisa squeezed his shoulder, tears shining in her eyes. "That was beautiful, honey," she whispered. Andrew approached the piano again. "That was extraordinary," he said to Ethan. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Ethan looked at his mother before answering. When she nodded encouragingly, he said, "From videos at the library. They have computers you can use for free. I watch piano lessons and then practice at home." "You practice at home?" Andrew asked, noting that the boy had mentioned videos, not actual lessons. "Do you have a piano?" Ethan shook his head. No, sir. I practice on our kitchen table. I drew keyboard keys on paper and put them on the edge of the table. Mom says it helps me learn finger positions. Andrew looked at Lisa, who blushed slightly. We don't have room for a piano even if we could afford one, she explained quietly, but Ethan loves music so much that he finds ways to practice anyway. Mr. Benson stepped forward, eager to join the conversation with the famous billionaire. Mr. Carter, can I get you anything else tonight? Perhaps a dessert menu? Andrew ignored, him still focused on Ethan. How long have you been practicing this way? Almost 2 years, Ethan said. Mom takes me to the music store sometimes. They let me play their display pianos for a little while if they're not busy. Lisa added, the library has a community program once a month where they bring in instruments for kids to try. Ethan never wants to leave when it's over. Andrew nodded thoughtfully. The restaurant had returned somewhat to normal, though many people still watched their interaction with interest. He turned to Lisa. May I speak with you privately for a moment? Lisa hesitated, looking at her son. I'm working and I need to watch Ethan. It's okay, Mom, Ethan said. I'll go back to my homework. Mr. Benson jumped in. I'll keep an eye on him, Lisa. Take 5 minutes. His voice was overly friendly, clearly trying to impress Andrew. With reluctance, Lisa nodded. She followed Andrew to a quiet corner of the restaurant, still within sight of her son. I'm sorry if we disrupted your dinner, she said. Ethan doesn't usually play in public. He gets embarrassed. There's no need to apologize, Andrew replied. Your son has remarkable talent. Has he ever had formal lessons? Lisa shook her head. No, we can't afford them. I work here 5 days a week and at a convenience store on weekends. It's enough for rent and food, but not much else. Andrew considered this information. What if I paid for lessons? Real ones with a top teacher? Lisa's eyes widened. Then her expression grew cautious. Why would you do that? You don't know us. I know talent when I see it, Andrew said. And determination. Your son has both. Lisa crossed her arms. With all due respect, Mr. Carter, people like you don't just give things to people like us without wanting something in return. What's the catch? Andrew was surprised by her directness. Most people would have accepted his offer immediately. There's no catch. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Why not use some of it to help a gifted child? Because rich people don't work that way, Lisa said quietly. They don't notice people like us unless we can do something for them. Andrew felt an unexpected sting from her words. Was that how the world saw him? Just another rich man looking out for himself? He supposed he had earned that reputation through years of hard business deals. Let me tell you something about myself. That isn't in the news, Andrew said after a moment. When I was young, I wanted to be an architect. I would sketch buildings for hours, dreaming of creating spaces where people could live and work and be happy. Lisa watched him carefully, not interrupting. My father told me there was no future in it, Andrew continued. He said I needed to choose a more practical path, so I studied business and technology instead. I became very successful, but I lost the thing that made me happiest. He looked over at Ethan, who was back at his small table, working on math problems. I see how your son plays and I recognize that passion. I don't want him to lose it like I lost mine. Lisa's expression softened slightly. That's a nice story, Mr. Carter. But one piano lesson costs more than I make in a day. Private lessons with a good teacher could be hundreds of dollars each week. Even if you paid for a few months, what happens when you move on to your next good deed? Ethan would just lose something he's come to love. Andrew nodded, understanding her concern. You're right to be cautious. So let me make a different offer. I'm not talking about a few lessons. I'm talking about a full scholarship. Lessons for, as long as he wants them, a piano for your home, and transportation to and from wherever the lessons happen. Lisa stared at him. Why would you do that for a boy you just met? Andrew smiled. Because I can, and because the world needs more beauty in it. He paused. Will you at least think about it? Before Lisa could answer, a crash came from across the restaurant. They both turned to see Ethan standing over a broken water glass, his face pale with fear as Mr. Benson loomed over him. Lisa rushed across the restaurant toward her son. Andrew followed close behind. Ethan stood frozen in place, staring at the broken glass on the floor. Water spread in a widening puddle around his feet. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered. "I was getting water and it slipped." Mr. Benson's face was red with anger. "This is exactly why children don't belong in a nice restaurant. Look at this mess." A few nearby diners glanced uncomfortably at the scene. "It was an accident," Lisa said, her voice calm but firm. She grabbed napkins from a nearby table and bent down to clean up the glass. "Leave it," Mr. Benson snapped. "Just get him out of here before he breaks something else. You can deal with this after your shift." Lisa stood up slowly. "My shift ends in 3 hours. What am I supposed to do with my son until then?" "That's not my problem," Mr. Benson said. "You know the rules about bringing children to work." "You told me it was okay as long as he stayed quiet and did his homework," Lisa replied. "He's been coming here after school for months. You never had a problem before." Mr. Benson lowered his voice. That was before he started touching expensive equipment and breaking things. He glanced at the other customers who were watching. "We'll discuss this later. Just get him out of the dining room." Andrew stepped forward. "Excuse me, but I believe I'm responsible for the current situation." Mr. Benson's expression changed instantly. "Not at all, Mr. Carter. These things happen." "Yes, they do," Andrew agreed, "especially when children are involved. That's why kind people don't make them feel worse about accidents." His voice was pleasant but had a clear edge to it. Mr. Benson forced a smile. "Of course. I simply meant that our insurance doesn't cover—" "I'll pay for the glass," Andrew interrupted, "and any other damages you believe a 7-year-old boy might cause by existing in your restaurant." Several diners nearby tried to hide their smiles. Mr. Benson's face grew redder, but he nodded stiffly. "As you wish, sir." He turned to a waitress, who was watching nearby. "Clean this up, please." Then he walked quickly back toward the kitchen. Lisa looked at Andrew. "Thank you, but you didn't need to do that." "I wanted to," Andrew said. He turned to Ethan, who still hadn't moved. "Are you okay? Did any glass cut you?" Ethan shook his head. "No, sir." His voice was barely audible. Lisa knelt beside her son. "It's okay, honey. Accidents happen." She helped him step away from the broken glass as a waitress arrived with a broom and dustpan. Andrew watched the small family. Lisa was clearly a good mother, protecting her son while also teaching him to face consequences. Ethan's nervous glances at the piano showed he worried he had ruined his chance to ever play it again. "I have an idea," Andrew said suddenly. "Lisa, when does your shift end?" 8 o'clock, she replied, checking her watch. "About 3 more hours." Andrew nodded. "Would you and Ethan join me for dinner after you finish?" "As my guests, of course. There's something I'd like to discuss with both of you." Lisa hesitated. "I don't know. It's a school night, and Ethan should get to bed early." "Please, Mom?" Ethan asked quietly. His eyes were wide with hope. Lisa sighed. "All right, but just for a little while." "Excellent," Andrew said with a smile. "I'll make a reservation for 3 at 8:15 at the Italian restaurant down the street. I hear they have excellent desserts." 3 hours later, after Lisa had finished her shift and changed out of her work uniform, she and Ethan met Andrew at Billionaire, a cozy Italian restaurant 2 blocks away. The host led them to a private corner table where Andrew was already waiting. "Thank you for coming," Andrew said, standing to greet them. He had used the time to make several phone calls and think about his next steps. Lisa looked tired after her long shift, but she had brushed her hair and put on a touch of lipstick. Ethan wore the same school clothes but had neatly combed his hair. They both looked nervous about dining in another nice restaurant. "Thank you for inviting us," Lisa said as they sat down. "Though I'm still not sure why you're doing all this." Andrew handed them menus. "Order whatever you like. We'll talk after." The dinner was awkward at first. Lisa barely touched her pasta, watching Andrew carefully as if waiting for him to reveal his true intentions. Ethan ate his spaghetti and meatballs, with enthusiasm, occasionally stealing glances at Andrew. As they finished their main course, Andrew put down his fork. "I've been thinking about our conversation earlier, about Ethan's musical talent and how to nurture it." Lisa nodded but remained silent. "I understand your concerns," Andrew continued. "You don't know me, and you don't want Ethan to get his hopes up only to be disappointed later." "That's right," Lisa said. "We've learned to be careful with big promises." Andrew smiled. "That's smart. So I've come up with a plan that might work for everyone." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. "This is Laura Williams. She's one of the best piano teachers in the city. She's agreed to meet with Ethan tomorrow for an evaluation." Lisa took the card but looked unsure. "I work tomorrow." "She can meet after school," Andrew said. "And before. You worry about transportation. I've arranged for a car service to pick Ethan up at school and take him to his lesson. You can join them after your shift." Lisa put the card down on the table. "Mr. Carter, this is very generous, but we can't accept. It's too much." "I'm not finished," Andrew said gently. He pulled out a folder and opened it on the table. "This is my offer, a full music scholarship for Ethan through my foundation. It covers weekly lessons with Ms. Williams, a piano for your apartment, and transportation to all lessons and performances." Ethan's eyes widened. "A real piano? In our apartment?" Lisa looked at the papers in the folder. "There must be some mistake. This says the scholarship lasts for 10 years. "That's right," Andrew confirmed. "Through high school and beyond if he chooses to continue." "But why?" Lisa asked. "Why would you do this for us?" Andrew looked at Ethan, who was practically bouncing in his seat with excitement. "Because talent like his is rare, but even more rare is the kind of determination it takes to learn piano on a paper keyboard." He turned back to Lisa. "I told you I lost my passion for architecture because I didn't have support. I don't want that to happen to Ethan, or to any other child with a dream." Lisa studied the papers again. "It says here that the scholarship is named after Ethan, the Ethan Martinez Rising Star Scholarship. What does that mean?" "It means Ethan will be the first recipient," Andrew explained. "But not the last. I'm establishing a foundation to identify talented children who lack resources and provide them with what they need to develop their gifts." Lisa looked up in surprise. "You're starting a whole foundation?" Andrew nodded. "And I'd like you to help run it." Lisa stared at Andrew in shock. "You want me to help run your foundation? But I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything about running a charity." "You know more than you think," Andrew replied. "You're organized, you work hard, and most importantly, you understand what these families need because you've lived it." Ethan looked up at his mother with excitement. "Does this mean I get to play piano for real, Mom?" Lisa put her hand on her son's shoulder. "I need to think about this, honey." She turned back to Andrew. "This is a lot to take in. What exactly would I be doing at this foundation?" "You would help identify children with talent who need support," Andrew explained. "You would meet with families, help assess their needs, and make sure they get the right resources. It's a full-time position with a salary that would allow you to quit your other jobs." Lisa shook her head in disbelief. "This morning I was worried about making rent this month. Now you're offering to change our entire lives. It doesn't seem real." "I understand your hesitation," Andrew said. "Take some time to think about it. The offer won't disappear overnight." "Can I still go to the piano lesson tomorrow?" Ethan asked, his voice small and hopeful. Lisa looked at her son's eager face and then back at the folder of papers. "Yes, we can go to the lesson, but that doesn't mean we're accepting everything else yet. I need to make sure this is right for us." Ethan grinned and bounced in his seat. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mr. Carter." Andrew smiled at the boy's enthusiasm. "You're welcome, Ethan. Just promise to keep practicing hard." "I will," Ethan said, "even if it's still on my paper piano." "Speaking of that," Andrew said, "I took the liberty of arranging for a rental piano to be delivered to your apartment tomorrow morning." Just until you decide about the scholarship. Lisa's eyes widened. You didn't even know if we would say yes. I was hopeful, Andrew admitted. And either way, Ethan deserves to practice on real keys before his lesson. As they finished their dessert, Andrew gave Lisa his personal phone number. Call me after the lesson tomorrow. I'd like to hear how it goes. On the walk back to their apartment, Ethan talked nonstop about pianos and music and his upcoming lesson. Lisa listened with a small smile, but her mind was racing. Could she really trust this sudden change in their lives? What if it all disappeared as quickly as it had appeared? The next morning, as promised, a piano was delivered to their small apartment. It wasn't huge, but it took up most of their living room space. Ethan was nearly late for school because he couldn't stop playing it. While Ethan was at school, Lisa called in sick to her morning shift at the convenience store. She needed time to think. She spread the scholarship papers on the kitchen table and read them carefully. Everything seemed legitimate. The foundation was already registered, the money was in place. There were no strange conditions or expectations. When it was time for Ethan's lesson, Lisa decided to go with him instead of finishing her shift at Harmony. She called Mr. Benson, who was not happy, but couldn't do much since Lisa rarely missed work. The car service Andrew had arranged arrived exactly on time, and the driver was professional and friendly. Ms. Williams's studio was in an expensive part of town. Lisa felt out of place as they walked into the elegant building, but the teacher herself was warm and welcoming, immediately putting both Lisa and Ethan at ease. Mr. Carter told me about your situation, Ms. Williams said as Ethan explored her grand piano. It's remarkable that he's learned so much without formal instruction. The lesson went better than Lisa could have imagined. Ms. Williams was patient, but challenging, and Ethan soaked up her guidance like a sponge. By the end of the hour, he had already improved his technique. You have a very special son, Ms. Williams told Lisa afterward. With proper training, he could go far. Very far. On the ride home, Lisa made up her mind. She called Andrew's number, surprised when he answered immediately. We accept, she said without preamble. The scholarship and the job. But I have conditions. I'm listening, Andrew replied. First, I need to know this is real and permanent. I won't quit my jobs only to find out the funding disappears in a few months. The foundation is endowed with $50 million, Andrew said. It's set up to last for generations. Lisa took a deep breath. Second, I need to keep things normal for Ethan. No press, no using him as the face of your charity, no parading him around to play for your rich friends. Agreed, Andrew said. His privacy is important. And finally, Lisa continued, I need to know why you're really doing this. The truth. There was a pause on the line. Can we meet tomorrow? There's something I want to show you. The next morning, Lisa met Andrew at a construction site downtown. It was Saturday, so Ethan was with her, excitedly telling Andrew about his piano lesson and how much he had practiced since. This is where I started, Andrew said, gesturing to the half-built structure around them. My first company was in a small office building right where we're standing. It was torn down years ago to make way for this new development. He led them to a trailer at the edge of the site and opened the door. Inside, the walls were covered with drawings and plans. This is my new project, he explained. A community arts center. Lisa looked at the plans in confusion. I don't understand. What does this have to do with Ethan's scholarship? Andrew pointed to a large area on the blueprints labeled Music Hall. Meeting Ethan made me realize something. For years I've been building technology and making money, but I lost sight of what really matters, helping people connect with their passions. He turned to face Lisa directly. The night I saw Ethan play, I remembered what it felt like to love something purely for the joy of it. I realized I could use my resources to give that feeling to others. Lisa studied the plans more carefully. This is a big project. It's just the beginning, Andrew said. The foundation will fund programs here and in centers like this across the country. Ethan tugged on his mother's sleeve. Look, Mom, there's a room with lots of pianos. Can I play there? Andrew smiled. That's the practice room. And yes, anyone with talent and dedication can use it, no matter how much money they have. Lisa looked at her son's excited face, then back at Andrew. You're serious about all this, aren't you? This isn't just some rich man's hobby. This is the most serious thing I've done in years, Andrew replied. Will you help me build it? Lisa took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, we'll help you build it. 1 year later, the neighborhood around Harmony Restaurant looked very different. The old buildings were still there, but they had been fixed up, not torn down. Fresh paint covered the walls, and new signs hung above the doors. The biggest change was the large building in the center of the block that used to be an empty lot. A sign above its glass doors read, Carter Martinez Community Arts Center. Today was the grand opening. A red ribbon stretched across the entrance, and a crowd gathered on the sidewalk. News cameras pointed at a small stage where Andrew Carter stood at a microphone. 1 year ago, I came to this neighborhood with plans to change it, Andrew said to the crowd. I wanted to build luxury apartments that most of the people who live here could never afford. I thought I knew what this community needed. I was wrong. The crowd murmured. It wasn't often that a billionaire admitted he was wrong about anything. Then I met a boy named Ethan Martinez and his mother Lisa, Andrew continued. Ethan taught himself to play piano on a paper keyboard because his family couldn't afford a real one. His mother worked multiple jobs to keep a roof over their heads. They showed me what true determination looks like. Andrew gestured to Lisa, who stood nearby in a simple but elegant blue dress. She smiled but looked a bit uncomfortable with the attention. Next to her, Ethan fidgeted in his new suit, eager for the speeches to end. Instead of replacing this neighborhood, we decided to invest in it, Andrew said. The Carter Martinez Foundation has provided art scholarships to 37 children in our first year. This center will offer music, dance, painting, and theater programs to anyone who wants to learn, regardless of their ability to pay. The crowd applauded. Andrew held up his hand. But I'm not the one who made this happen. Lisa Martinez is the real force behind this project. As our foundation director, she has worked tirelessly to create programs that truly serve this community. Lisa, would you like to say a few words? Lisa stepped up to the microphone. A year ago, she would have been terrified to speak to such a large crowd, but her new role had given her confidence she never knew she had. Thank you all for coming today, she said. When Mr. Carter first offered me this job, I thought it was too good to be true. Things like this don't happen to people like me and my son. She looked out at the faces in the crowd, recognizing many of them as neighbors and former customers from Harmony. But I've learned that extraordinary things can happen when someone believes in you. This center isn't just about teaching arts. It's about giving people the tools to believe in themselves. More applause followed. Lisa smiled and added, And now, to officially open the Carter Martinez Community Arts Center, I'd like to invite my son Ethan to play for you. Ethan approached the piano that had been set up on the stage. He was still small for his age, but his presence seemed bigger now. A year of proper lessons had transformed his natural talent into something even more special. As his fingers touched the keys, the crowd fell silent. He played Debussy's Clair de Lune, the same piece he had played that night at Harmony. But this time, his performance had a new depth and confidence. When he finished, the audience cheered loudly. Andrew stepped forward and handed Ethan a large pair of scissors. Together, they cut the red ribbon across the center's entrance. People began to flow inside, eager to see the new facility. Inside, the main hall was filled with artwork created by local children. Hallways led to dance studios, practice rooms, and a small theater. Volunteers gave tours explaining the various programs that would be offered. Andrew found Lisa standing in front of a wall covered with photographs. Each picture showed a child with their instrument or artwork, along with a small story about their background and talents. The scholarship wall looks great, Andrew said, joining her. Lisa nodded. I want everyone to see what these kids can do when given a chance. You've done amazing work, Andrew told her. The foundation has already helped more families than I thought possible in just 1 year. We're just getting started, Lisa replied. There are so many more children out there with talents waiting to be discovered. Across the room, Ethan was showing a group of younger children how to position their hands on a keyboard. His face lit up as he explained the basics of piano to his eager audience. "He's a natural teacher," Andrew observed. "Yes," Lisa agreed. "Ms. Williams says he could have a career as a performer if he wants, but he seems to enjoy teaching just as much as playing." Andrew watched the scene with satisfaction. "A year ago, I would have measured success by how much money this property could make me. Now I measure it by how many lives we can change." Lisa smiled. "Speaking of change, have you made any progress on your own project?" Andrew pulled a folded paper from his pocket and handed it to her. It was a sketch of a building with unusual curves and open spaces. "My first design in 20 years. It's rough, but it felt good to draw again." "It's beautiful," Lisa said. "You should take some of the architecture classes we're offering here." "Maybe I will," Andrew replied with a laugh. The sound of another piano floated through the hall. They turned to see Mr. Benson, the former manager of Harmony, sitting at a piano in the corner, carefully picking out a simple tune. His face showed intense concentration. "I still can't believe he signed up for beginner lessons," Lisa whispered. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Andrew said, "and a chance to follow their passion no matter when they discover it." Lisa nodded in agreement. "That's what this place is all about." As evening approached, the crowd thinned out. The reporters packed up their cameras, and the volunteers began cleaning up. But in one of the practice rooms, Ethan still sat at a piano, working through a difficult piece with two other scholarship students. Lisa and Andrew watched from the doorway, neither wanting to interrupt the moment. "Did you ever imagine this is where we'd be a year after that night at Harmony?" Lisa asked quietly. Andrew shook his head. "I came to that restaurant looking for a property to buy. Instead, I found a purpose. Outside, the sun set over the neighborhood. The lights of the new arts center glowed warmly in the growing darkness, a beacon of possibility in a community that was no longer defined by what it lacked, but by what it could create.